Today's episode, I have a special treat for you. An interview with Antonette Montalvo, the visionary nurse. Whether you already have a nursing vision or you're looking for your vision, this episode is sure to inspire you. Welcome to the Stay at Home Nurse Podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Cooper Gillingham. For over 25 years, I've strived to use my nurse credentials to find work that fit my lifestyle. Whether it was raising my 4 children and 3 fur babies, traveling the world, or moving to Mexico and living on the Caribbean Sea. Sometimes I succeeded and sometimes I failed, but I always learned from the experience. Now, I want to help you by sharing what worked and what didn't work. There are so many opportunities out there for nurses today. The Stay at Home Nurse Podcast will inspire and equip you to have a nursing career that is meaningful and supports your lifestyle. Now let's get started. Hi, today we have a special guest on the podcast. We are going to talk to Antonette. Antonette is a nurse visionary. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Antonette, and what you do?
Absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's wonderful just seeing the evolution of this podcast and what it's presenting. So I really appreciate being a part of your audience. But yeah, just a little background of me. I do go by the branding of the visionary nurse. It's something that has embodied what I stand for as it applies to thinking about the importance of having a vision, having a focus and direction, especially when you want to be innovative in your approach, because I think within the nursing profession, we often receive kind of our immediate track of what we want to do, maybe, in the traditional clinical setting or specialty. But I've recognized, especially as I've been on this journey, just how much nursing can contribute to so many other realms of professions, disciplines, and the way they impact the way healthcare is delivered. And so it's really been a framework for how I approach my understanding of the nursing profession and myself. And so it's kind of the tagline that I go by, and also a part of the tagline for an ebook that I published a couple of years ago. So, as the general background of me, I am a board certified pediatric nurse practitioner. Nursing was my second degree, and education was my first. And I've always tried to find this way to blend health and education. I just wasn't sure how I was going to execute that. And I also knew I had a strong population health and community health focus, as well as wanting to see what that looked like across multiple sectors, whether it be in global health sectors, as well as, maybe in business. And I found a variety of ways to play that out, from living and working throughout Central America to being able to create a board game, actually, when I was in nursing school. And so I should have known that I had a different outlook on nursing at that point when I was approaching it. But it's one of those things that the more vision and clarity that I have for myself, the better understanding that I have to provide my unique stance on the nursing profession, but as well as help guide other people along the way in their kind of visionary nurse journey too. So that's kind of the basic snapshot of me.
That's really interesting that this is your second degree. I didn't realize that, but I think you found a really good way to blend those two. I want to go back to something you said about when you first started nursing. And so what would you say to a new nurse that maybe either an older nurse or a young nurse who is entering the profession about being a nurse visionary? It seems like some nurses are able to very quickly kind of know what their vision is and their mission and kind of fall into it. And others kind of go along for the ride for a while and then one day wake up and say, oh, I want to do something different. I need to change. I have a vision now. So what would you say to somebody to help to spark them and kind of light that fire that, yes, you can be a visionary?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And that's kind of like the question of all questions that a lot of people, and I think I failed to mention that under this visionary nurse branding, I operate as a coach and mentor for nurses, as well as a community health consultant. So that'll unpack as I'm answering that question. But I think the first thing is, one, being open. The second thing is being patient with yourself. And the third is being willing to learn new things. So, and I think that kind of goes with being open. So especially for me, I guess kind of in painting the picture of my own journey, I knew that within the nursing profession, what I wanted to do was a little bit non-traditional. I already knew from the very jump that I wasn't necessarily going to be by the bedside. I knew I wanted to be kind of in an outpatient primary care setting in some capacity, but I didn't even know the extent to that as it applied to public health and community health and all the other things that nursing can encompass in that way. But I think the second piece was that I was just open to opportunities, especially as a nursing student and then starting off as a new nurse and then kind of evolving in my degree, just being open to learn many different things. When I first got into nursing and even prior to, I always knew pediatrics, like that's my main. I love the kids. I want to teach the kids. I want to be able to care for the kids. But I also knew that I didn't know what I was going to encounter when I started nursing school or beyond. And so I told myself, just be open in terms of what you're interested in. And I found even as I was going through my clinical rotations, I loved, the psych and mental health aspect. I loved community health outreach. I loved, every other nuance. There were many different pieces of each specialty and rotation that really spoke to me. And I started to recognize that nursing is not solely a one track. Like, it's not just one specialty and you stay there for forever. I mean, some people find that niche and that's great. But for me, I said the skill set can apply to so many different areas. And the way to impact health can go far beyond what I thought I was being trained to do. And so as a result of that, it just gave me kind of a broader perspective of understanding that this ability to go into nursing and understand what health and education look like within the nursing sphere can actually help me impact the way people receive care, the way I can educate people in their health, as well as the way that I can envision using my own profession in a much bigger way. And so for that new person who's like, I've graduated, now what? My biggest thing is very much be open. You might have thought my specialty, hands down, is I'm going to be on XYZ floor, or I'm going to do XYZ thing. But you could get into that and then you say, I really didn't want to do this anymore, or this is not what I envisioned. And so it's just saying, you know what, let me learn what I can learn out of this, but let me also be open to seeing that if this thing that I thought I was going to do may not actually be the best of fit for me, I can be open to seeing how my skill set can be applied in a variety of different settings.
I love that. So one of the things that I know about you that the audience probably doesn't know is that you are not a person who waits to have opportunity fall in your lap. When you have a desire to do something and to change something, you take risks and pretty big risks, like moving your family and all of that. So I would like to have you talk briefly just about the mindset that goes behind that. Like, a lot of people wait for permission. Like, somebody has to give them permission to do these things, but I don't know you that well, but I have a feeling you don't wait for anybody's permission. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, you have a great judge of character for sure. So, and I mean, I think it's wonderful when people can recognize that about you, because it really has just been a part of my nature and character. Not so much in the sense of like, I'm going to plow over people and situations, but I've always been in the mindset that I really can't wait for someone else to check the box off for me if I know that I have a drive and a motivation and even just the possibility of being able to impact someone else's life, whether it looks like what I thought it was going to look like or whether someone said you're allowed to do this. And I think a portion of that just comes from maybe how I was raised. I've always had to kind of overcome a lot of different situations. As a personal insight into me, when I was just 2 years old, my biological father was actually killed in a car accident. And that kind of set up this very major piece about me where, one, at a very young age, I understood the fragility of life, but I also too recognized that you never know where people are coming from. You never know what is going on in someone's life and how they're approaching life. And so if I have something that I can contribute to that person that's going to help move them along, help them heal, help them recognize that they don't just have to be a statistic or a number, then I'm not going to wait around and say, I hope someone says it's okay for me to do this. I've just recognized, you know what? If you have the opportunity, then go for it. If you have maybe an inkling of an opportunity, then try it out and see what happens, because life is very fragile. But we all are equipped to impact people in our own unique way. And sometimes that might come from some of the hard places or the challenging places that we encounter, whether in our personal or professional life. So I think a lot of that has set up how I approach things and why I'm willing to kind of take that risk. And so to kind of lend to what you were alluding to of, relocating my entire family to where I am now, we were previously living in Philadelphia. I was working in a busy clinic in Philadelphia, and I was kind of doing my thing as a pediatric NP, seeing lots of different patients, but recognizing there was still something more, always this kind of nagging of, patients and children and families are coming in and out, and they were, very challenged with resources, with access to care, and even just continuity of care. And I wanted to do more. And I felt like if only I could find a different platform or venue or more time than maybe what my traditional clinical setting was providing me, maybe I could not only change what's happening in that 15, 20 minutes of time, but maybe I can impact what's happening across their home, across their community. And I know that's a huge lofty goal, but it's just the way I think. Maybe that's, again, why I call myself the visionary nurse. I always see that there's much more than just what's directly in front of me. There's always a bigger picture. And I kind of push myself in that way to say, there's a lot more that I can add to this story, even if I don't have all the skill set and understanding or clarity of it right now. And so as a result of kind of going through that process and really thinking about all the different experiences that I had, both, when I lived abroad, as well as just with my education background and then my nursing experience in those initial years, I had this push to say, I want to change the way in the landscape of healthcare in a much bigger way that eventually someone may say, if I could just, or I say to my patients, if I teach you everything that I know, you may not have to come back to me, and you would be a much more, resilient and healthier person. And I felt like that was much more of a value than just saying, here, let me tell you this, this, and this, and you go on and then you come back and see me. So hopefully that's clear in that understanding of that. And so as a result, after a couple of years, I gave my husband the big presentation of, hey, what if we moved to rural South Carolina and found a way to impact community care? And I know that sounds a little bit far-fetched at the moment. And sure enough, my husband was like, no, we're not doing that. I'm not moving from, we have a perfectly streamlined life here in Philadelphia. Why would we do that? And, a little bit of the backstory, my parents are in this area. They've been here for many, many years, and they've been very instrumental in their community. And it's something that has always been kind of in the back of my mind, but it was just that timing piece. And I got to a point where I said, it's time for me to do more. And sometimes it's like listening to that inner push of, you know what? I don't have all the pieces of the puzzle, but there's more to be done to this. And so eventually, after some time and my husband just kind of sitting on it and trusting me and understanding and seeing my vision, he said, you know what? I don't know why I'm saying yes, but let's do this. Let's make this huge leap. And, we made this huge leap from city urban life to very rural life, but recognize that this was a way to transform health and even just our lives and what we were looking to do, especially for me, within the realm of nursing, in a way that even now it still feels like it's kind of unfolding in front of me. And so here I am now, making strides and changing what community looks like, how nurses view their understanding of being innovative themselves and being leaders themselves, as well as hopefully making an impact on health that will embody what, this year represents as the year of the nurse and midwife. Awesome.
I love that no matter where your location is, you've gone from about as polar opposites as you could get to as far as location. I find it very interesting that you were able to accomplish as much as you did from where you are. I lived in South Carolina for a while, so I know a little bit about the area that you're living in currently. And a lot of people would think, well, I'm in this little tiny town of South Carolina. I really can't do much. But I know from the first time we talked until the second time we talked, a year had passed and you had done some amazing things. I mean, truly amazing. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, I have got to have you on the podcast, because I would like you to just kind of go through the list and just let people know, check off what you did in that year to 16 months or whatever it was that we had talked. And because I want them to get a feel for what you actually have done. And maybe there's someone out there who will resonate with one of those things and will want to contact you, because to think that somebody did these things in their lifetime would be an accomplishment. And the short amount of time that you did it in just amazed me. It made me feel like a total failure in life. The way you had a baby and all that too. I think you had some complications with delivery. And so, okay, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I do need to preface by saying you were someone who was very instrumental in just giving me encouragement at a time where I needed it. So don't ever downplay
Well, thank you.
the role that you have in people's lives and the impact that you're making too. But yeah, when we first spoke, one, I just loved the instant connection, and especially for you to be able to relate that the understanding of some of the challenges within South Carolina. That spoke to my soul, because I thought there's someone else out there that gets, not that South Carolina is just this, rogue state, but there are unique challenges that come with being here. And so I appreciated that. But I guess in kind of a listing factor. So when we spoke, I was pregnant with our second child, and I was on the verge of just launching the development of the business that I have now as a consultant and coach. So it's Antonette Montalvo Consulting and Coaching Services, where I had made this drastic pivot. When we moved here, I thought I was going to jump into clinical care, and my whole background was to do this community health initiative and maybe open a clinic. But I hit so many roadblocks. South Carolina is one of the most restrictive states for autonomy for NPs. I couldn't find a PNP position anywhere because there's not many pediatric hospitals near where we are. At least 60 miles out is the nearest pediatric hospital, and most are looking for family specialties or things like that. And then also, too, being the new person in a town, even though I was kind of familiar with the town with my parents' background being here, people are a little bit slower to kind of be open with connecting with you if they don't know who you are. And so I found myself saying, we did this huge move, and all the things that I thought I was going to do seemed like a roadblock. And I had to kind of reevaluate and say, this vision that I have is not about a building. It's not about a check off of who says I can do something. It's about me understanding that I know I'm equipped to change health in some way. I just have to move one step at a time. And so I started immediately networking with whomever would speak to me. And all of a sudden, I found myself in front of every single major hospital CEO, administrator, clinic director, and et cetera, willing to listen to what I had to say. And at that time, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, I think, had released a report on the Future of Nursing report, and it was about nurses as change agents. And I took hold to that and said, if I'm a nurse, I'm a change agent. And it doesn't matter how that comes about, I'm just going to be present to make change. And so with those conversations, it's like a fire of boldness was lit underneath me. And I was like, whoever I can meet with, I will. And I started painting the picture of this community health initiative. I'm trying to help people understand my vision point. But as a point of gaining visibility, I also started blogging about it, as well as connecting on LinkedIn and other professional networks, and kind of reflecting on this journey. And so anyone who said, hey, could you be on this radio broadcast about it? Sure, I was on it. If anyone said, hey, could you, speak at this meeting? I was there. Even if I didn't know all the ins and outs, I was going to do it. And so from there, as a result of that reflection, I ended up publishing an ebook. I ended up hosting multiple different seminars within my local community on health and education and how to better care for yourself. I ended up developing my business and launching myself as a community health consultant and a coach and mentor for nurses. As a result of opening up the ebook and those kinds of things, I ended up getting a chance to join an organization called SONCIEL, which is the Society of Nurse Scientists, Innovators, Entrepreneurs, and Leaders. And we became affiliated with the United Nations. As a result of that affiliation with the United Nations, ended up speaking at the ANA conference, I think it was just last year. There was one point where I was traveling in multiple different places at one given time. So I hopefully people are tracking me. Got a chance to be a guest speaker at that conference, and just a host of different things just unfolded. Got connected with a publishing company, and at the time we spoke, there was a book that I had actually reached out to you about that I was trying to get some insight on which direction to go, and was actually able to pitch the idea to this publishing company, and soon we'll be publishing this particular book that we had spoken about. And on top of that, had our second son, which ended up in complications where I was in the ICU and intubated and, separated from our little baby for over 24 hours, not knowing what was going to happen, if I was going to live or die. And sure enough, came up out of it stronger and ready to go. And even from that has been an opportunity to encourage people. And so just really allowed every single experience that I've encountered to be a springboard to make a change in someone else's life. So it's just, if I have life and breath in my body, I'm just going to keep going and be able to hopefully inspire other people along the way. So, at the time of this recording, I also have several other speaking engagements that are coming up within the next couple of weeks. And I literally sit in awe every time something is presented to me, because I'm completely humbled, and I'm just like, thank God that I'm alive to see this and that I have anything to offer to anybody.
When I hear that, I hear all the roadblocks, and I think any of these would be valid reasons why anybody would say, I'm not supposed to be doing this. But you looked at it and you said, I'm going to do this in spite of. And
Right.
I find that very inspiring, and I hope others do too. So there's a couple questions I have for you. I want to know, first of all, who is the client that you work with? Who is your ideal person that you like to work with, that you feel like you can impact the most? Because I know that's what it's all about for you, is impacting them so that they can go out and make an impact in the world.
Yeah, no. And I think that sums it up perfectly. I have to get you to market me, which you are, which is awesome. But on the coach and mentor side of things, my ideal client is that person who has that big idea, may not know exactly where it's going to go, but has a willingness to see something more. So, as nurses, I think we're very careful. A lot of times we want to make sure we have all the pieces of the puzzle figured out, whether it's in executing our care, because we don't want to be wrong. We know that life is fragile and we want to do things the right way. And anytime we feel that we may, by any means, possibly cause an error or cause more hurt than good, we're very careful to not go towards that direction. We just want to make sure that we carry out what needs to be done. But then on the flip side of that, as nurses, we are also so determined to make the most for our patient or for the person that we're encountering that we will go to lengths to do that. And so I like to work with that person who has tapped into that other side to say, I know there's something more to what I can do in my profession, in my understanding. I've always kind of seen things a little bit differently, but I may not have had the support to do so. I'm a great advocate for someone else, but I'm not the best advocate for myself. And so I need someone else to help push me along, organize my thoughts, give me some type of direction to go, and then help me kind of walk step by step through it sometimes, or just point me in that right direction so that I can figure out where I need to go next. And I often jokingly speak with my clients and say, this is a lot like a tutoring session. You already know where you want to go, but you just need someone else to help guide you that might have a little bit more insight in front of you. But then you also need someone to kind of cheer you on and say, you can do this. That great idea, that opportunity to change the way maybe things happen on your unit or that business that you might want to start, you can do that, but you might just need a little bit of extra support and direction. And I'm here to not necessarily give you all the answers, but to help educate you in a way that you can find a little bit more clarity, as well as have the motivation and the confidence that you need to move forward on that. On the other side of it, I have the community health consultant side of things. And as a community health consultant, a lot of that is just really rooted in my desire as just wanting to see the community as a whole change. For me, I guess the community often is like the patient to me. And sometimes your neighborhoods and your communities and your populations don't have the resources that they need. And if the community as a whole is well, then that trickles down to everywhere else. And it doesn't mean that you can fix every single problem that arises, but we have all known, and kind of the big buzzword is social determinants of health, and how if you don't get to the root cause of access to care, or the wealth within a town, or what kind of job resources that exist, or even just the transportation that someone needs to get to their care, how all of that can impact whether someone is consistent with their care, values what they're receiving in care, and also trust, as well as feels as if they can participate in the care that they're receiving. And so for me, a lot of my focus is helping, organizations, whether it be hospital organizations, coalitions, even within business alliances that want to have a health focus, strategically think about who's your audience, how can you actually get their voice as it applies to their health needs and everything else that impacts that. Who do you need to collaborate with so that you can find a multidisciplinary approach, and it's not just you trying to figure out all the answers? And how can you strategically execute that in a way that is sustainable, and it's not just a project that's being thrown out there and you hope that it lasts? Because a lot of times we come up with all these great ideas and projects, but we don't have any insight from the person who wants it. And then once they start it, we wonder why it flops and why it doesn't continue. And so it's really strategically thinking about how to be more sustainable, how to be more collaborative, and how to be more strategic in the approach to health outreach or health projects that are really going to impact the community as a whole.
I absolutely love that. And back to what you were saying about your coaching and consulting. And I think it's really important for people to understand when you have this idea, but you don't know where to go with it, you're not helping anybody. Ideas don't help anybody. When you actually act on that idea is when you can impact and help so many people. And sometimes you just need somebody to hold your hand for just a few minutes and get you started on that right foot. Sometimes you need a little bit more hand holding and you need somebody to give you each step along the way. Some people like to be told, this is what you do next. Come back to me when you do that and we'll tell you what to do next. And so I love the idea that, you can get those ideas out of our heads and help us to go in the right direction and give us. Some of us need permission. We need permission that says, yes, you can talk to the CEO. I can't talk to the CEO. I'm just a nurse. No, you're not just a nurse. You are a nurse. So that is what you do. You empower these nurses. Mm-hmm. And I love that. So I'm going to wrap it up now, but I think that we'll probably be having you on again. If anybody has any specific questions or anything like that, they can reach out to you. If they have a specific topic they would like to hear more about, we would love to have you on again so they know they can reach out by just emailing me at hello@thestayathomenursepodcast.com. And if you have a vision and you're not sure where to run with it, I think you need to contact Antonette and get her advice and ask her if she would be willing to spend some time coaching and consulting with you to really kind of hash that out and see where it could lead to. Anything else that you'd like to say before we close out today?
I mean, I appreciate you kind of lending the space to provide this. And I think you're truly a front runner. I love what you're doing. I love this platform that you've created and just how you really are kind of paving the way for, a lot of us nurses out there that are looking to break the mold. So I commend you for what you're doing for sure. And then, I'd love for people to connect, at www.visionarynurse.com. I love hearing from people and connecting with people or on LinkedIn as well. I kind of live and breathe on LinkedIn. And I think, if you're a nurse and you haven't connected to LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn because it's just such a great opportunity to network across the board. So, definitely, check me out at Antonette Montalvo and I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. We're going to have all those links in the show notes for all the ways that you can connect with Antonette. And I think we'll be having you on again soon. So if you have a specific question or a topic, she covered so much and she really has a vast knowledge. So if there's something specific, just let us know. That's a wrap for this week's episode. I look forward to talking to everybody again next week. Wow. Every time I talk with Antonette, she really inspires me. I'm sure she's inspired you too. If you're interested in picking up her book, you can do that at thevisionarynurse.com/shop. We'll have a link in the show notes. That's a wrap for this week's episode. I look forward to getting into your earbuds again next week to inspire and equip you to have the best nursing career.